Hi, I'm Marty. You know, the holidays are just around the corner, and for most of us, this is a busy time of the year. The holiday season can be fun and festive, but if you forget to focus on safety, accidents can happen. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you some holiday safety tips, and I'll show you how to properly hang decorative light strands outdoors. Let's start with some safety tips for Christmas trees. If you celebrate Christmas, chances are you're going to have a tree. Lots of people enjoy the look and scent of real Christmas trees, so let's begin with a look at some common sense safety tips for those. First of all, choose a tree that's been freshly cut. The fresher the tree, the higher the moisture content will be. When you're shopping for a real tree, ask the retailer when the trees were cut. Look for a tree that's nice and green. You don't want brown. You also don't want a musty odor. You want that fresh tree smell. Here's the tree I picked out. This is what a nice fresh tree looks like. Notice how the needles are tough to pull off and they don't break when I bend them. There aren't any dry, brittle twigs inside, and when I do this, you don't see a shower of falling needles. A few needles falling from inside the tree would be okay, because evergreens naturally shed a few needles ever so often. You just don't want to see excessive needle loss. If you have any doubts about how fresh the tree is, just choose a different one. Once you've selected your tree, unless it was just cut down at the tree farm within the last few hours, you'll want to cut about an inch or so off the bottom of the trunk. A fresh cut will improve the tree's ability to absorb water, so it doesn't dry out as quickly. If your retailer doesn't do this for you, make sure you have a saw and a pair of safety goggles and cut the trunk as soon as you get home. Then set up the tree as soon as possible, and if necessary, once you've cut the tree trunk, you can put the tree in a bucket of water and store it in a cool place for a day or two. It's essential to keep the tree well watered. At the time a Christmas tree is cut, more than half of its weight is water, and you want to keep the tree absorbing as much water as possible for as long as you can. The warmer and drier the environment you put the tree in, the faster the drying process will go. Choosing a cool display location will help slow the drying. An average-sized Christmas tree can consume more than a gallon of water a day at first, so use a tree stand with a generous water capacity. Check the water level in the stand a couple of times a day and keep the stand full. To protect your floor from spilled water, you can use a protective tray or mat under the tree stand. Oh, and don't allow your pets to drink out of the tree stand because you could end up with a sick pet. Securing a tree skirt over the stand will help keep the pets and children out of the water, but you still have to supervise. A fresh tree that's well cared for is not a fire hazard. But if the tree were neglected and let to dry out in your house, you'd have to be careful about heat from older damaged Christmas lights, sparks from cigarettes, matches, or fireplaces, or other sources of heat or flame. After the holidays, or when the tree is dry, whichever comes first, dispose of it promptly and properly. Many communities offer a curbside pickup, or they have designated tree collection sites. Don't try to burn the Christmas tree branches in the fireplace. Now, if you go the artificial route with your Christmas tree, you won't have to water your tree, but you will need to have a safe place to store it when you aren't using it. Artificial trees come in lots of different sizes and price ranges, so it's easy to find a tree that fits both your display space and your budget. Some artificial trees are short, others are tall, some are full, while others have a slim design to fit in tight spots. If you're not the type who enjoys stringing lights, look for a tree that's pre-lit or one with fiber optics. Some trees have white lights, others have multicolored lights. Whether you're using a real tree or an artificial one, it's important to choose a safe display location. Position your tree away from fireplaces, radiators, heat vents, portable heaters, lamps, and other sources of heat or flame. Make sure the tree is firmly supported in the stand and never allow anyone to smoke or light matches near the tree. Other than that, the best location is largely going to be a matter of personal preference. Keep in mind though that if you have pets or small children, you'll want to take some additional precautions. If you have any ornaments that are sharp or breakable, or that have small parts or that look like candy canes or other food items, hang those on higher branches where the children and pets won't be able to reach them. And skip the tinsel, because it can cause serious problems if ingested. Even when you take these precautions, it's best to keep pets and younger kids out of the room the tree's in if you aren't there to supervise. Okay, now let's move on to safety tips for candles and fireplaces. Candles, menorahs, hurricane lamps, and warm fireplaces lend a special glow to the holidays. But any open flame can be dangerous if you're not careful. When you're burning candles, use sturdy candle holders that don't tip easily. And to keep the flame height under control, trim the wick to about 1/4 inch before you light it. And never put candles on a Christmas tree of any kind. Avoid putting candles near exit doors, open windows, or other draft sources, or next to or directly below anything that could burn, or where they could get knocked on the floor. Keep your candles, matches, and lighters out of the reach of children and pets, and never leave a burning candle unattended. If you love the look of flickering candlelight, but you'd prefer to avoid the flame, you can use electric or battery-operated flameless candles as safe alternatives. Some flameless candles actually are made of wax, so they look exactly like the real thing. And let's not forget about the other main source of holiday flames, the fireplace. To keep your fireplace cheerful during the holiday season, don't light a fire unless you've had the chimney professionally inspected and cleaned of any creosote or soot accumulation within the past year. Don't forget to open the flue before you light a fire. And keep the Christmas tree and other decorations away from the fireplace. Always use a screen or the glass doors in front of a fire to help keep sparks and embers from flying, and use only flame-resistant hearth rugs. If you use fire salts to add color to the flames, remember that they contain heavy metals that can cause severe illness if they're ingested, so keep them away from kids and pets. And one last fire safety note. Make sure you test your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors every month, and make sure they have fresh batteries, just in case. All right, now let's talk about holiday electrical safety. This time of the year, people hang decorative light strands just about everywhere. On the Christmas tree, around the house, on the house, and even in the landscaping. And if you're like most people, you've probably got a lot of light strands in storage. Make sure all your light strands have been approved by an independent safety testing lab like Underwriters Laboratories. And inspect all of your light strands before you put them up, even if they're new. Check for broken or loose bulbs, loose connections, worn or missing insulation, frayed wires, heat damage, or other potential fire hazards. If there's any damage, throw the strand away. Christmas lights are inexpensive to replace, and it's best not to risk making an unsafe repair. There are lots of different kinds of holiday lighting options nowadays, including the new energy-efficient LED light strands. These cool burning lights are extremely popular, and for good reason. They come in lots of different shapes, sizes, and colors, and they last for years. They'll help you save on that holiday energy bill. Of course, you'll want to test all your lights and replace any burnout bulbs before you hang the lights, especially if you'll be putting them on the house. Just remember to unplug the lights before you change any bulbs or fuses. Many light strands are designed so that you can connect multiple strands together. And if you're going to do that, check the box for the maximum number of strands you can put together. Never exceed that number. Now, a lot of people like to hang lights on the outside of their house. If you're putting lights outdoors, always choose lights that are labeled for outdoor use. Never use indoor-only lights outside because they aren't weatherproof. And by the way, don't use outdoor-only lights indoors as they might burn too hot. When you hang lights outdoors, fasten them securely to prevent wind damage. This means using proper hangers. If you don't mind using nails on the outside of your house, you could use clips like these. If you don't want to dry fasteners, there are lots of other clip styles to choose from. These clips, for instance, will hold any size lights on all roof and gutter styles and on deck railings, fences, and vinyl siding. If you want to attach lights to your shingles, these would be a good choice too. There are even clips for banisters or railings. Use clips instead of staples or nails for hanging your lights. That way you won't risk piercing the wire insulation and creating a shock or fire hazard. Besides that, they'd be a pain to remove. Before you start hanging your lights, make sure you have enough strands and hangers to get the job done. You'll also want to make sure you have enough outdoor extension cords and available outlets to avoid overloading. To avoid shock hazards, always plug outdoor decorations into outlets with ground fault circuit interrupters. Remember, test your lights before you hang them, but don't leave them plugged in while you're hanging them. As you're hanging the lights, be sure to position them where no one will walk on them, including you, while you're hanging them. Also, you want to leave a little bit of slack. You want to avoid pulling the strands taut because that would stress the wires, but you don't want so much slack that the wires flap around in the wind either. Once you've hung your lights, plug them in and turn them on to make sure everything works properly. Whether your lights are indoors or out, always turn them off or unplug them before you go to bed or before you leave the house. To make it easier to turn off those hard-to-reach indoor lights, you can use an ornament switch or an extension cord with a foot switch. For your outdoor lights, use an outdoor safe remote switch like this one. Here's to a happy and safe holiday season. I'm Marty, and I'll see you on the next project.
Thanks, Marty. And if you'd like to learn more about holiday safety, Two great places to start would be the Consumer Product Safety Commission website and the U.S. Fire Administration website. And if you type holiday safety in the search box on each site, you'll find lots of helpful information. Now let's take a quick break for a message from our sponsor.